I still believe everyone starts from somewhere. Like, I don't think you're just handed president. Like, we wouldn't.
Well, you can't be handed president.
Yeah, we wouldn't elect a president if they didn't have experience or.
But I think that it does have a big, like, how do I explain it? The whole, our options are limited in that way of how you're nominated depends on who you know. Because there could be wonderful leaders out there that are just not in privileged families. No one's going to hear about them because, you know.
See, now we're talking about leaders. It's an organizer. So is
then
the president considered...
That goes to our question whether or not the president is a leader or organizer.
You were saying it was all the people behind the scenes.
I think it is.
The organizer, because you said the organizer is the ones that, like,
give the power
to the people.
Yeah. That's what and then the leader is the person who takes the power for themselves. But how much power does the president really have?
Yeah, does the president really take power off of themselves?
No.
That's the people behind them.
Well, it's mostly like senators and the House of Representatives. And
so then we have a group of leaders, and then the president is the organizer of these group of leaders?
Well, he's the one who establishes who gets what power. Doesn't he elect the Speaker of the House and stuff like that?
All everything that we can and are able to do, like what certain the laws, right, for what senators can do, it's been pre-established, right? So where does that exactly leave the president? He has his own, he doesn't really have control of what the other senators do. Everyone's like their own.
Then I feel like this is a flaw in the political system. Maybe we should focus on not having so many leaders rather than organizers.
Well, maybe we're just missing the category. Maybe like we're focusing on two extremes where like we're either a leader or organizer. Maybe there's something in between that we're just not seeing.
Maybe it's because it has to be on a smaller scale because you can't just have one organizer.
Is that where
for this whole national for this?
Do you think that's where the political parties come in though? Because political parties are the ones that raise up the issues that need to be discussed and what they're fighting for, right?
Okay, and that would meet the curiosity aspect of what a potential organizer.
And they have a blurred vision, like an ideal goal they're trying to reach for.
It sounds like for me you're describing an interest group, like the NRA or something like that, because their issue is to exercise the full rights of the Second Amendment.
Okay. And a political party can't have humor, like a sense of humor, like.
I'm like, what? Why does it have to do anything?
They get so offended.
They do. They get offended by everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
maybe we can't have maybe you can't have organization at a larger scale. Maybe you can only have it at smaller scales.
Maybe.
I don't know, but what's the next step up from being part of a group that's been organized? What's the next step? Are you just going to always be a group?
Organizing with other groups?
Well, see, the organizers are they're never content with what is going on. They're always questioning. So there's always going to be an issue for an organizer to get people together for. You know what I mean?
So there is no end. So is there any ideal?
Well, that's his idea.
Is there any ideal goal? I mean, you said there's an ideal goal they're searching for, but is there any end? Like, is there any resolution these organizers are going to have? Are they just always going to be questioning?
Well,
always going to be trying to communicate?
It doesn't exactly say that they have a goal in mind. They say they find goal in creation of power for others to use. So in general, organizers find something and they organize to give power for others to use so that they can change it. So they're constantly going to be doing something because it's not that they have a certain goal to meet. In general, they have this goal of giving people power so that they can utilize it.
Okay. That makes sense.
But yeah, the communication. He says that there has to be a different approach to teaching this whole organizing because the approach that's taken now, he says, is to like out of the book. There's no experience involved, and it's not really teaching anyone anything.
Is it just like kind of like a baking of education where you're just instilling
it's kind of like baking of
values?
education, where they're not really experiencing anything and they really don't know what it is that they're practicing.
They just kind of taught it. And that's it.
That's how I feel about college. We just taught stuff and that's it.
Which I don't know. Maybe that's why we do end up electing presidents like we do. because I mean they can read everything about like poverty and everything like that, but I mean, if they don't experience it, then it's hard for them to fix it. And maybe that's an underlying problem that we face that we just don't realize.
That's a good point, because they have no basis on, yeah.
Maybe it's because they have an idea of what it's like to be wealthy, and America's trying to strive for the wealthy.
And maybe that's why our system kind of not caters to the wealthy, but leans more towards the wealth of the nation.
Because that's all the president.
Because they're used to being wealthy. That's where their experience comes from. Doesn't come from being in poverty, living in poverty, which most Americans. There's like more Americans living in poverty than there are wealthy, but yet our leaders or organizers, whatever you want to call them, are working to benefit, their experiences.
Right.
Can I tie that into how Alinsky always, like, there's a quote in, hold on, I'm getting to it, where, anyways, it talks about, it's in the very last chapter, like one of the first paragraphs, so he talks about how the Organization for Action will now, and in the decade ahead, center upon America's white middle class. Because you're talking about how the government always seems to work for the upper middle class, but Alinsky seems that the ideal for change is always going to be in the America's middle class. He even goes into specifics.
What page is that?
184.
Okay. So wait.
It's like the first sentence in the paragraph. He even goes into specifics about America's white middle class. But I mean, doesn't that kind of make sense? Like, just based on politics, like everyone seems to be, well, it used to be like white and upper middle class. Don't you think?
Well, I can see what you mean by that, like the middle class.
But why do you think that's this focus? Like, why do you? I don't know why the middle class is always this.
Well,
focus
think about it. I think the middle
change.
class. A lot of the middle class have worked their way up, possibly. Or maybe they've fallen down. So they, in both cases, they've experienced some kind of hardship.
Yeah, he does later on distinguish about how even for the middle class, there's the low income middle class, and how like he goes, we belated beginning to understand this, to know that even if all the low income parts of our population were organized. No, but he like talks about how there's different levels of the upper middle and middle class. Is it middle class, or is it just called middle class?
I don't know, probably middle.
Yeah, middle class.
And so he talks about how they've struggled, but it doesn't. I just don't understand why he focuses on that group.
I think it makes sense for him to focus on that group because I think if you're talking about the upper class, then they don't really have to deal with these issues. So they don't have to worry about it.
But they're not getting experience if they're not dealing with these issues.
They don't care about experience.
Yeah, but he wants to. He says the middle class decide, like that's where the change
I'm
comes
talking
from.
about not the upper middle class. I'm talking about the upper class in general.
In general.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about the middle class. I was
No,
like, no.
I'm not talking about a subcategory like we're talking about.
You're just talking about the upper class completely, not upper middle.
Right.
Upper.
Just upper. No, just one upper.
Upper lower class.
Right, and then the lower class, I don't think they have enough hope to think about these issues. I think that
They feel like they're just in survival mode.
yeah, and there's a quote in there, and I wish I could find it, but he talks about that if they don't have hope, then they don't have enough energy to worry about it. Like they're just trying to barely make
Ends meet.
Yeah, ends meet. That's the phrase I was looking for. But the middle class, like they're like almost on the brink of being able to gain power, but they just don't know how to.
Right.
But they're also on the verge of becoming.
So do you
a little
think
bit
they've
lower.
experienced enough issues for them?
I think they have enough of the
Organizers?
issues on their daily lives. I think so. I think either they've either come up from the bottom or they've fallen from the top, and just this place that they're at is like this little limbo land. They have to try to figure out what to do next.
I think it's funny how he says America's white middle class. Like he seems very specific on.
Well, okay, well let's probe that. Why do you think it
the
would be
white.
the white middle
Because
class?
we've always had the power. We've always had I think it seems like they've always had the resources. They've always had the upper hand. But then if we've always had the upper hand, that doesn't. I feel like you would want.